Welcome to another episode of the Ignite Your Mind podcast, a safe place for real talk and discovering powerful stories, talking about mental health, real business journeys, and hearing inspiring stories. My name's Sanjay Patel, and I'm a transformational life coach. And this week, I have another special guest that is Luke Budd. Luke takes us back to when he was growing up as a child. His mum, unfortunately, was exposed to abusive relationships and suffered depression. He then goes on to mention how he used to get into scuffles with his mum's partner at the age of 12 years old. As he talks through his life, he explains how counselling and just talking to someone has completely turned his life around and how he thinks. Fast forward, Luke then explains how he's recently got made redundant and now tripling down on becoming a coach to help others. One of his missions in life is to help 1 million people through doing what he loves. If you're feeling low, unmotivated, or struggling to get out of a hole, then Luke's story is definitely one to listen to. I hope you enjoy. Okay then, and welcome to another episode of the Ignite Your Mind podcast with myself, Sanjay Patel. And again, I've got another special guest in a similar line of work to me. So it's going to be really interesting on how this pans out. So welcome, Luke. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, good, man. Excited.
Good. You just said before, we just jumped on before, and you said this is your first podcast or your first time you're telling your story. So, yeah, how you feeling about that?
Yeah, excited. I mean, I've kind of told it a little bit to my own audience through a live that I did a couple of weeks ago. Outside of that, literally, this is the first time. So I'm hoping we can cover a lot more things off than just what I went through on the live as well.
Oh, mate, let's get in deep. Let's dig in deep then. Right, okay, Luke. Let's take me back. And for everyone listening, take me back to what it was for Luke growing up as a child, as a kid.
Yeah, so I mean, going all the way back to the start, my mum, I lived with my mum and sister originally. My mum had suffered with depression for a lot of my younger years. Mm-hmm. So I spent a lot of time really looking after my sister, I suppose, in terms, not looking after her, but, just odd bits like, picking her up from school and taking her back home and things. And she's only 4 years younger than me. So that was like me walking my sister home from like 8-9 years old.
Yeah.
My mum had she'd had a lot of abusive relationships with different partners. There were a lot of people that were involved in drink and drugs and, all these different things. I'd even ended up in a couple of physical fights with some of them at a really young age when I was maybe like 12.
No.
Yeah, literally.
What, with your mum's partners?
Yeah. There was a couple, to be fair, but there's one, the youngest one that I remember that really stands out is actually back from, I must have been maybe 10 years old, and there was one guy that he was an alcoholic, and I think he probably took drugs as well, and he got into an argument with my mum. He was trying to steal my mum's car, and so he was gonna take the car, and he was like, "I'm out of here, and I'm taking your car, and I'm not coming back." Blah blah blah. I'd actually broken my foot at the time, which is why I remember the age roughly as well, because I was still in crutches, and this guy had gone to go and grab a car keys, and so I grabbed the coat, and that was sort of where a little bit of a scuffle started, and my mum got in between and was like, "What the fuck?" He's like, he's 12 or whatever.
Well, yeah, hold on. So wait. So you were getting in a scuffle with your mum's partner. I'm guessing he's an adult, right? You're still technically a child. You're 12 years old. So you're already engaging in that life, or I don't know how you want to call it, but like, yeah. So that kind of life, or that, being exposed to that violence. So, how did you deal with that?
To be honest, younger. I mean, when I was really young, I went through a period where I was really quite angry, I suppose. I didn't really know how to deal with my emotions a lot of the time, and like because obviously my mum was depressed at the time, it meant that she was quite down, and so we'd get into arguments over daft things sometimes. I remember times like hitting the wall and kicking the door and all those sorts of typical things. So generally, I wasn't younger. I wasn't really that good at dealing with my emotions. It was more, I think I was in high school, and I remember I actually went to go and I went into school one day, and they had like a little room you could go in that had these, I can't remember what they were called now, but they're kind of like people who decide whether to refer you to a school counsellor or something. So I went into these rooms and kind of talked to them and said, "Listen, I don't really know what to do. I've not spoken to anybody about this before. I've not even spoken to my mum about it. I've not spoken to my dad, like nobody."
How old are you then?
This is how I keep. Still in high school, so I must have been maybe 14, I think, 15.
Okay, so you're still a sponge, aren't you? You're still young. Yeah.
They referred me to this counsellor. I used to go meet up with him in secret in Starbucks in town on Briggate, and he was like, "Listen, I really want to come and meet your mum, and explain like what we've been doing." And I'm like, "No, it's all right. She's not. You don't need to go see her."
Yeah.
And it took me about. I was going to see him for quite a few months before I actually got to the point where I told him and said, "Listen, my mum doesn't even know, but I can see the value in it. Let's go speak to her." And so the first time my mum actually even knew that I'd been going to these sessions was when the guy turned up on the doorstep with me.
No. What was her
Yeah, and he
reaction to
came
that?
into. She was, I think, because she'd seen how I'd been dealing with things. I think she was in a way quite glad that I'd taken the responsibility to go and do something with it. But I also think she was shocked that I found it that much of a problem. But she spoke, she spoke to the guy and he explained how things had been going and what we'd been going through and things, and she was okay with that. But yeah.
Just aside from your mum's, you said your mum's got depression. Just aside from that, like, what was the relationship when she was okay? Like, was she still a loving mum? Did she still do everything for you, like like a motherly thing, or was that quite distant?
Yeah, no. Outside of the depression, like my mum was great. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's never like I live with her now. Like, we've got the best relationship we've had ever now. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
So no, it's been great. I remember even there was one time where because I was taking my sister home from school, my mum used to give us like some money to be like, "Oh, you can nip into the shop on your way home, and grab 20p a penny sweets or whatever it was that when they used to exist back in the day."
Well, I remember them.
Yeah. And I remember the shop that we used to go to had an advert in the window one time saying we need a paper boy, we knew somebody to do the paper round. So I went into the shop and like I say, I must have been 8 or 9 years old and said to the guy, "Listen, if you're going to let me do this paper round, like how much is it?" "It's £3 a week. You need to come every Saturday, but you're 9. You need to come with an adult."
Right. Okay.
But like I say, even despite being depressed, the guy said to me, "Look, if you can get your mum to come with you every Saturday morning, it's yours. Take it. Like you've been coming here for years, fine." And she still got up with me every single Saturday at 5 o'clock in the morning to get to the shop for 6, to pick up the newspapers, take me on the round, and just things like that. She was still always 100% behind me, whatever I did.
Okay, so hero traits right there, because I mean, you full well know, and I know just from speaking to other people, when you have got depression, severe, mild, it's even a struggle just to get out of bed, let alone bring up 2 children. Like, so fair play to your mum for that. Okay, cool. I mean, so it sounds like quite a difficult upbringing in some stages. Can you remember any really happy moments throughout your growing up into your teens?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it was always so. In terms of my mum, she would always, every single year, make sure that she took us out into town or to Blackpool or somewhere every year for the lights. When the illuminations were on, and she used to get me and my sister in the car and drive around for hours, like taking us around these lights. And then she'd be like, "Right, we're done now. We're going back." And we'd be like, "No, let's go around again." So that was that was something that always stood out for me. And I mean, sort of on my dad's side, it's always been good with my dad, and he used to be the one that sort of took us on all the holidays, and always playing games with us or whatever every time I saw him. So yeah, it was good.
Nice. Okay. So just on that, where was your dad sort of from a young age?
So my dad, I used to see him every fortnight at one point, I think. I don't know how the arrangement sort of came about, to be honest, but I think I used to see him every 2 weeks, and then it sort of increased to every week eventually. And then towards the back end of primary school, I actually moved in with him because he was the high school that I wanted to go to. I wasn't in the catchment area for it, so I sort of moved in with my dad from about 11 for a period of time, and then later down the line I ended up back at my mum's.
Okay, cool. All right, but always a good relationship with your dad. I know he wasn't living with you permanently, but always a good relationship.
Yeah. It's always been good, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so take us through sort of what were you like when you turned 15, 16, 17, sort of coming up to your later years of secondary school or high school. Like, what were you like, about personality-wise? What were you like? Were you still that angry child? What were you like?
No, I think probably after I saw this guy, it was weird because from the point that I started seeing that counsellor, I didn't react anymore to any situation really. I had a totally different approach, and literally that happened from day one of seeing him. And I think it was more just venting to somebody impartial that sort of helped to change that. But I did go through a period where I was sort of like from about 15, to be fair, where I'd started smoking, and I was, out every weekend, and then it'd get to a point where I was going out through the week as well. So the anger had gone, but I was sort of going out and just having a good time, and kind of, I suppose, letting my hair down another way.
Yeah. What are we talking? Like alcohol, drugs? What were you
Yeah,
doing?
alcohol. Yeah.
Just alcohol.
Yeah.
I mean, that's quite typical of, when you turn. I mean, I remember I had my first Bacardi Breezer when I was 14 years old, and then
Yeah,
I started
exactly.
going,
Yeah, yeah,
and then
yeah.
I started using my brother's fake ID when I was 15 to go out to all the bars because he was 3 years older than me, so it made me 18, and I just I just used that, and I think it's quite typical of, like, people around or that age, I think, but um.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, do you find that probably was, I mean, was an escape of what was actually going on? Because you said it was you speaking to someone, but what was that?
Yeah. I think so. Yeah, I think it was. I think it was really just like an escape. Like I say, there was obviously talking to that guy, but then I think just staying out of the house and being busy and doing something, even if it meant drinking when I didn't really want to. And for
Mm,
me, that was just, I need to just stay out of the house. So if I happen to be somewhere where everybody else is drinking, I'm going to get involved if it keeps me away
yeah,
from it.
yeah, of course. All right, cool. And then, so what happened after that? Did you go to university or college or anything like that?
No, I left pretty much straight away. So I started sixth form. I was there for a couple of months, and I decided that I don't know what it was in my head. I was like, this isn't for me anymore. Like, I just need to get gone and go work.
Yeah.
So I jumped straight into a call center job in Wetherby, not too far from where I am in Leeds, and literally started from there. And I was been working full time ever since 16, really. Yeah.
What was that like in a call center at 16 years old?
Um, it was all right. I mean, I remember, for me at the time, I was wanting to, obviously at 17, I could drive, and I wanted to, get my driving lessons and then pass my test. And so for me, it was really just getting the money in quick, to try and, to pass my driving test, basically.
Yeah.
Um, which I did, and I got the money from, and I was kind of like, I don't know if this job's for me. Like, it's the first full-time job I've done. Is this where I want to be? So, and it's kind of far away because Wetherby's like a, 40-minute bus ride.
Hmm.
What else can I do? And so I spent quite a lot of time after that I went from the call center to an apprenticeship in business admin. I went from the business admin apprenticeship into door-to-door sales, and literally worked like 13 hours a day, 6 days a week in the snow, knocking on doors for £60 a week. Like, it was crazy, but the mentality that gave me, though, was
Mm.
absolutely amazing. Like the whatever it takes mentality and the winner's mentality, all those different things are things that I really took away from that to use for the rest of my life to keep me driven.
Yeah. I mean, it's traits of a grafter. When you said earlier, when you went into the shop to do the paper round at like 8, 9 years old, like I was exactly the same. And I remember I was doing exactly the same at 7, actually 7, 8 years old. I started, and it's
Yeah.
it does sort of run through with you like to later life as well. But um, talk me through like that, because this is an interesting topic. And uh, I mean, was you, when you were in your 20s? Obviously, you were working, you were grafting, but where did that mentality come from?
Um, it's a strange one, really, because I've always, like I said, ever since that point, I wanted to be doing something different to what everybody else was doing. And I don't know what it was, whether it was this little rebellious person that, because of what I was going through or what, I always wanted to do something different to what everyone else was doing. So it started with the
Mm.
paper round. I ended up doing, like, through school, I ended up doing jumble sales and tabletop sales and just like flogging my old stuff for the sake of making some money. I'd go bang on doors to go and do car washing. I used to buy phones on eBay where people had accidentally put them up for 99p without a reserve, and I used to buy them and then flip them to phones for you, and get the
Mm.
full 30, 40 quid, whatever it was worth. Like, that was something I was constantly doing and constantly trying something different. I think then at the time, probably in my early 20s, so at 19, I was the first time I became a manager in corporate world in a call center.
Mhm.
And I think at that time, because like all of my mates and things were still, out and, going on nights out and things like that, and I wasn't quite as interested anymore. I think to me, that corporate world and the becoming a manager and this big leader, even though that was employed for rather than self-employed as I am now, I think for me, that was still, I'm doing something different that nobody else is doing. So this is what I want to do. And I was really
Yeah.
driven to do that. And sort of as time's gone on later into my 20s, I've always wanted to do a business. I don't know why, but actually now talking about it is because I've been trying to think of ways to run a business ever since I was 8 or 9. What can I do? And so I think I was 24, and I'd lost 5.5 stone because I'd gained loads of weight. I hired a personal trainer, and went on a fitness journey and lost 5.5 stone myself. And I was like, oh my God, this could be it. This could be the thing where, you know, I train as a personal trainer and I run boot camps and run classes, and that's what I'm going to do. And I just can't go. I can't half do something. If I'm going to do it, I'm all in, and that's it. Like I'm just tunnel vision. So I trained as a personal trainer. It was a 2-year course, but it took me 7 or 8 months to complete because I would just like, just give me the work, bang, 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 done. Now I'm going to set up a limited company and I'm going to go run these boot camps and these classes, which I started doing. And something which I've not touched on yet, but I've got OCD. And so I very quickly, when I started doing that, became absolutely obsessed. And I was just like, I was working a full-time job and I was running these classes and I didn't feel like I was getting enough time in through the week. So I wanted to work all day Saturday and all day Sunday. And I just lost touch with everything else around me. Like I wasn't seeing family. If they were ringing me to arrange to do something 2 weeks from now, I'd be like, I can't, I've got to go out flyering or, you know, run a boot camp or whatever it is. And it that quickly sucked the passion out of it for me. I was like, I'm not enjoying this anymore. I'm not doing it. And so I stopped and spent sort of the next couple of years up to now working with my own coach and, you know, just learning all these different life hacks and things that I could use for my own life. And I got, like, as I was going through it, I was like, this is what I could do as a living as well. You know, I could be a coach, but not become obsessed. And actually, I think through working with my coach, I actually realized that the OCD wasn't necessarily what had made me obsessed with the old business. It was actually my belief that OCD was always a negative obsession. And so I flipped that, and now I look at it as, right, so I'm going to become obsessed with running a business. Now I'm 27 now, become obsessed with running a business, but also having the work-life balance that's right for me, and also spending time with family and spending time with friends and doing these other things, because that's now the new obsession.
Yeah. That's amazing, because it's, even though like so many people, and this is it's almost what Gary Vee kind of preaches, is like that hustle mentality and sort of don't give up. And you know what? I agree with him on so many levels, but there's one thing which you're a prime example of that. You kind of just lost passion, you lost interest because you got so into it. You went too far, you went well overboard. And I hear that so many times.
And it was definitely, so I was just going to say, it was actually Gary Vee that I'd been listening to up to the point that I went, right, I'm going to do this, because I'd started coming across these videos and things. And that's where I was like, right, yeah, I'm going to go all in and just kill it.
Yeah.
But it did, like you say, suck the passion out of it. Yeah.
The thing is, like, what he says is right? It's not incorrect, but it's down to each individual to find their own balance. And it sounds like you just didn't have any balance. There was like 100% and 0% life for you. Do you know what I mean? It's more like you were giving more time to your business and everything outside of you, but not you.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Because you had this want or this desire to create this thing that you wanted so bad. So talk me through when you hired your coach. Like, talk me through when you got when you lost weight. Like before that, were you overweight, or like what was the crack?
Yeah, it's weird. So when I remember there was one time in primary school where this kid had called me fat. Excuse me. And like I said, I was in primary school, and it was from that point onwards that, and I still remember the guy's name and everything. That's how clear it is in my head still. And sort of from that point onwards, I'd grown in my head I didn't talk about it with anyone, but I had this belief that I was fat and I was overweight. And if I'm honest, I think subconsciously, because obviously you'll know as well, like if you're telling yourself something over and over again, it becomes a reality because your brain starts to try and make it come true. And I look back at pictures now, and I wasn't fat through primary school. I got a little bit chubby at one point actually, but then over high school I slimmed down, but in my head I was still fat. And then it was only into my adult life that I actually started to really gain weight, and I think I got up to about 18 stone, just shy of 18 stone, which to some people that might not be a lot depending on your height and everything, but for me that was massively overweight. And I took a picture and I was like, oh my God, I feel disgusting. And now I can see it visibly, like in front of me as well. So no, I think growing up, I hadn't really been that overweight, but then into my early 20s, I definitely did gain a lot of weight. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the moment? What was that aha moment or that penny drop moment? You were like, Joe, what? I need to do something about this.
I think it was just the point where I sort of, I'd seen a lot of people taking like before and after pictures, and I was like, oh, I
Okay.
wish I was that guy, and it's just not happening for me. And I did have a lot of limiting beliefs around it because I thought that this isn't something that I can do, and it used to make my stomach turn seeing people post these before and after pictures because deep down, really, that's what I wanted, but I didn't know how to get it. And then there was just one day where I was like, do you know what? I'm just gonna try it. I'd actually years before I'd hired a personal trainer already because I wanted to run a marathon, and I literally went from 0 to running a marathon in the space of 16 weeks. And I'd never trained, never done anything. And so that probably fed into my weight gain after that as well, because at the time I went to run the marathon, I was overweight. I'd just been away for my 21st birthday, and it was loads of booze, loads of drinking, and I came back feeling sluggish, and I was like, right, I'm going to change. I'm going to go do this marathon. But when I finished training for the marathon, I didn't have the personal trainer anymore. And so where I struggled was then going backwards and going, right, I'm no longer training for a marathon. How do I cut the calories back to a normal amount? And I think because I'd never really done it before, I didn't have that understanding that I even needed to cut them back. And so really that was when I was 21, 22, and that's where the weight started to pile on, because I was still eating like I was training for a marathon, but I wasn't exercising like I was training for a marathon anymore.
Yeah, of course. And what about your living situation? Like then, were you with your mum?
Yes, yeah, I was, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I moved around loads. That's why I stumbled a little bit then, because I started off with my mum. I moved to my dad's. My dad then moved house shortly after, so I moved with him, and then I went back to my mum's, who also moved, and I got my own house, and then moved out of that to my nan's, and from my nan's back to my mum's, who moved
Bloody
again.
hell.
Like, yeah, there was literally like 16 years where the average that I think it was 15 or 16 years where the average time that I spent in any house was 9 months.
Really?
Yeah, and that was like I said, 9 months average. But that meant there was one or two where I was in there for a year, and quite a lot where I was in there for 4 months.
How do you think that's affected you, like later on in your life?
It's weird, really, because all I ever really wanted was like to be stable and to have the security and to have I was a manager, so I felt great, and like then go get my own place, and that was it, and I was just never going to leave there. But I think at the same, because it was like I wanted to create this opposite life. But then I think, in a way, it's also made me more comfortable with uncertainty, and I know how to deal with it, and it doesn't really faze me when something does happen. So things like the fact that the lockdowns happen now, and people are getting the redundancy notices, and there's all this uncertainty. My instant reaction was like, what am I going to do with this time? I need to do something. Like, I'm just going to drive myself mad if I don't.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's speak about that now. So, Luke, before you mentioned that you had been made redundant at the start of lockdown.
No, so I was furloughed quite early on in the lockdown.
Okay.
And then so while I was furloughed, I sort of started. This was where I sort of started with this.
Yeah. So talk me through. So before we went into lockdown, like what was the job? What were you doing there?
So I was a manager in retail. Well, I say in retail, in a finance department within retail for a head office.
Okay. And how long you'd been there?
So I've been in the business for just shy of 5 years.
Okay. Enjoy it?
5 years, yeah. Yeah, it was good. Yeah. I'd only recently moved to the finance role, to be fair. I was working in the contact centre for the first 3 years, 3.5 years, and then moved into finance in October. And obviously this then happened in March.
Yeah. Okay, so talk me through how you were feeling back in March when we started to slip into the wave, or whatever they want to call it. Talk me through how you were feeling then.
If I'm honest, I didn't think it was going to turn into as big a situation as it has done.
I think no one predicted that.
Yeah,
did they?
Exactly.
It was a mental thing that's happened.
Yeah, because I remember kind of the day where we'd been asked to go home, or to at least go and try work from home and see if it worked and test it and things. I remember my last day in, because I was set up and one of the first people to go. I remember saying to him, "Hi, I'll see you in September." like jokingly thinking I'll be back next week or maybe the week after or something. And so like I say, it took me probably a month to actually come to terms with the fact that this was becoming a bigger thing and it was actually going to be potentially an issue. So it was probably mid-April time where I sort of went, oh, hang on, this is going to be an issue. But my brain instantly goes, so what are you going to do about it? Like, what are you going to do? This issue's going on. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
And I suppose in terms of the pandemic, I was like, well, there's nothing I can do. Like, I can follow the guidelines. I can make sure that I'm doing what I need to do to not spread the virus, of course, but whether it becomes a bigger issue or not, then isn't down to me. So I can't concentrate on that. I need to think, what am I going to do with my time?
Yeah, there's a quote I put out at the start of the pandemic. It was like, you can't control what's going on around you, but you can control what's going on within you.
Yeah,
and it resonated
exactly,
with so many people at the start of lockdown because everyone sort of went into panic mode. No, there was like a holiday period, wasn't there? In the first 2 or 3 weeks, everyone was like, "Oh, okay, sweet, yeah, I get to work from home, or I'm furloughed, or whatever." Like, and then all of a sudden, panic starts to set in, and people start panicking. So you were furloughed at the start. How long were you furloughed for?
So, well, I suppose officially I still am at the minute. So I got furloughed sort of the first week of April, I think it was, or the second week of April. I've been furloughed ever since, but received my redundancy notice in July, 1st of July.
Okay. So when do you officially stop getting paid then from there?
So with redundancy, so because the number of people that are affected, there's like a 45-day consultation window minimum. So if that takes 45, it might take longer, but if it takes the 45 days, mid-August is when I would get my 4 weeks notice, and then 4 weeks later is when I'd stop.
So officially sort of mid-September.
Yeah.
Okay. And then so at the start of lockdown, what did you engage to do? Which is kind of over here.
So I kind of started having a bit of a play around with different ideas, to be honest. And I know I mentioned to you before, I obviously knew who Lynette was, the previous guest. And that was through the debt-free community, because I was just looking at different things that interested me, and finance and little quick tips for, how to save better and how to pay off debt and things. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying I'm in massive amounts of debt, but just the idea of knowing that I've got these tools if I ever need them is what sort of interested me. So I started having to play about with a few different things, and posting sort of things about finance and little tips and things that people could use. And I sort of got to a point where I was like, this isn't really what do I actually really like seeing when it just pops up on my screen randomly and I'm not expecting it? What is it that I actually like to see? And it's always been like you've just said, with the quotes and things. And so I was like, oh, do you know what? Yeah, the quotes are what make me really take a step back and think about what it actually means and how I can apply it. And so I was like, right, okay, so I'll start posting, some of my own quotes, and then it turned into pictures of my own with quotes on them, and sort of built up from there. And sort of, started getting engagement from people going, oh, this is really keeping me going because of the lockdown, I'm not feeling too great and there's loads of stress at the minute. So it's good to see there's still this positivity around. And then I started having people reach out to me and say, like, can I speak to you on the phone? Like, I really need to work with you. And I think people had just automatically assumed that I was already working as a, full-time life coach. And kind of, like I said to you before we came on here, working as a corporate manager, I'd always worked with, for like 9 years, an element of life coaching where people are experiencing difficulties at home or abusive relationships and, all these different, not happy in the role, all these different types of things. I'd just never thought about making it a full-time job. And so when people started reaching out to me, I was like, oh my God, yeah, I can turn this into a full-on business. So why not? And I suppose everything just kind of aligned up in the sense that I was furloughed. So it gave me time to really think about it. And when I'd kind of made a decision, then I got the redundancy notice. So then within a couple of weeks of that happening, I was like, right, I need to make a decision now. What am I going to do? And I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to go all in and do it, because, like I say, I'm not afraid of the uncertainty. I've got enough money to cover myself for a period of time. And the worst case scenario is you end up at zero, and I'm still 27 or 28, and it's like, can I take that risk to potentially end up doing my dream job for the rest of my life and be self-employed? I'm like, yeah, that's a risk I'm willing to take. So
yeah, well, so that's the thing, is it risk versus reward, right? even
Yeah.
in times of uncertainty, they're the most fulfilling and fruitful ones you can get, along with reward and
Yeah.
satisfaction. And I fully agree with that. And you know what? I don't think, going into this pandemic, I kind of realized that there's not enough coaches and there's not enough people that inspire in the world. There's a lot, but they can
Yeah.
always do with more, especially when things like this happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's never happened in our lifetime, so it could it's only going to benefit people, right, in the long run.
Yeah.
I mean, look, fair play, credit where credit's due. You did go all in. You knuckled down and you did it. And taking decisions like being made redundant, going on to furlough, being in a pandemic and still creating something. And this is what I've been trying to push. It's what I've been seriously trying to push throughout this whole pandemic, is that regardless of who you are, what you're doing, if you've got the opportunity where you're not financially unstable, or even if you are a little bit unstable, there's always opportunities to do what you want to do. And I'm forever grateful that a lot of people have reached out to me even and said that I've actually slowed down. I found my
Yeah.
purpose. I found what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've actually just quit all
Yeah.
the other bullshit, and I'm actually doing stuff that I actually really enjoy.
Yeah.
And I know it's cliche to say, but I always say, but everything does happen for a reason. And you're probably doing this
Yeah.
because of what's happened. First of all, what's happened to you in your past, your childhood and stuff like that, to enrich and empower other people. But also that this period of time is just giving you that push, giving you that opportunity to be
Yeah.
like, oh, that's sweet. Yeah, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Okay. So how are you? I mean, what's your mission sort of moving forward now? Like, what do you want to do?
So suppose for me, long term, so I've set myself sort of three major goals that I want to achieve across the course of my lifetime, because I thought I need to know that every decision I'm making is working towards whatever my ultimate goal is. So I made three. So the first was to help 1 million people across the course of my life. So whether that's through content or whether it's through one-to-one coaching or seminars or whatever it might be, that's the number of people I want to aim to impact, basically. The second was one that it stemmed from when I was a kid. So the second was to write a book about mindset and about limiting beliefs, and probably use like my OCD and how I've turned that from like my biggest like downside into my biggest superpower, or whatever you want to call it. I think like going back to when I was a kid, I used to spend hours and hours writing and just typing at this PC, and my grandma's PC, and the text was like this big. So it only took me like 3 words to fill a page, but I felt like I'd written a book, so I was buzzing. And so that's always been a goal. And now I think I've actually got something of value that I could write something about. And then the third one is to set up a charitable foundation for homeless people. And I remember it was watching Rich Kids Go Broke.
Yeah.
That's the program, isn't it? Yeah, I was watching Rich Kids Go Broke.
Yeah.
I know, because I just wasn't really, it wasn't I wasn't open to it. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand how people got there and why they couldn't then get a job and things like that. And watching that actually helped me understand it. And I remember seeing that someone had got enough money to then, like, you could see they were really trying, do you know what I mean? Like, someone had managed to get enough money to go and buy an umbrella. So they bought the umbrella, they went out onto the street, they sold it. They then used that money to go buy some more umbrellas, and then take them out, sell all them, and they kept going until they had enough money to go and book a room in a hotel for one night. And
Wait,
they put all this.
Did you watch this on YouTube?
It might have been.
There's this guy, and I follow him, and I've been following him for a while, called Simon Wilson, and he does these no money challenges where he goes abroad. And one of them was where he bought an umbrella for like £1, or bought like 5 umbrellas for £1 or something, sold them, and then went and bought more, and then sold them and went and bought more. And then and then he managed to get himself. It might be the same person. I don't know. Anyway, sorry. Carry on.
No, that was the thing. They got enough money to go and buy, to go and pay for one night in a hotel, and that would have been all the money gone. And they got to the hotel. They had enough money for the basic room. And the only thing that stopped them from being able to have the room was that they didn't have any ID. But they didn't have any ID because they didn't have a fixed place of residence. Yeah. And so I was like, well, that's a trap then, because how are they ever, do you know what I mean? For hotels that need the ID, how that's going to keep happening. So for me, the charitable foundation, the idea behind it is that it'll be somewhere where people can come in and live, first of all, and use it as a fixed address so that they can get their ID and things that they need, but then learn how to write a CV and interview techniques and how to find a job but learn about limiting beliefs that they might have developed while they've been homeless, to then help them find a job, help them learn how to save money coming back to the debt-free community, so that eventually they can go and get their own place. But all of that to happen just under one roof. So that's the big goal.
Nice. Yeah, mate, powerful. I love that. I can put you in touch with a few people that are in the homeless charity community, actually. I know a few people that do stuff like that. So not exactly that, but do similar stuff. So he might be able to help you in your long-term journey.
Definitely. But that'd be great,
mate, fair play. I think that's it's quite it's not, it is ambitious, but at the same time it's purposeful, right? I've got to ask you a question. Can you define in your own words what you think happiness means?
For me, it is doing whatever you want to do every single day because you want to do it, not because you've got this underlying feeling that you think you should, or somebody else is telling you that it's the best thing for you. It's just doing what you want to do every day because you want to do it.
Yeah. And for those who are listening that are struggling with that or stuck, what would you say to them?
I think so. I did a post yesterday because I had a couple of people that reached out to me that were saying, I've tried all these different jobs and none of them are making me happy. I don't feel like they're my purpose. And I was like, okay, that's fine. What have you tried? Here's a list of everything I've tried. Right. Okay. So you've tried like 15, 20 different things. Have you, everything that was listed though, was looking at career and work. And I think it is probably because a lot of the time we focus on entrepreneurs. There's a lot of focus on entrepreneurs and business people that are, life coaches that are creating businesses to have an impact. So I then said, well, have you got kids? Are they part of your purpose? For some people, are you a carer? What kind of impact do you actually want to have? Are you not passionate? Maybe you're not passionate about a normal day-to-day job, and that's fine. If you just have a day-to-day job to pay the bills and you still want to have an impact, there's other things you can do. Go and plant a tree every year for the rest of your life, knowing that you left 50 trees or another 60 trees or whatever it might be. There's so many different things that you can do to have an impact that doesn't necessarily mean making it an all-day, everyday job or a business. So I think it really is just getting down to what really interests you outside of work. If work's not something that you find in your thinging, what else is there outside of that really does make you happy and you enjoy? And there's so many different things you can do. Volunteering work, maybe once a month, even if you like doing that. If you've never tried it, just go try it and see what it's like.
Highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. I've done it before. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. So I think that's it really. I think it's just thinking outside the box a little bit more and not just focusing on career, because for some people that's not going to be a big driver. That's just one thing. And like, to me, career has always been a big driver. And so it was a big driver when I was employed. It's going to be a big driver now as self-employed. It's been a big driver all my life before. But for people who've never been driven by work, maybe that's because work's not the thing that drives you. Maybe it needs to be something else.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. And I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and they were speaking about said person, and was a point where they were just going to go and get a job for the sake of getting a job. And I was like, well, why? It's because they want all of these things they fabricated in their mind. I want a big house. I want this nice car. I want this family. I want to have kids. And that was what was guiding them to do some shitty job. And I said to that person, I was like, well, what if you eradicated everything you wanted in life and it didn't matter? So you didn't need any money. You didn't need the house. You didn't need the car. You didn't need all this stuff. If you didn't want any of that stuff, what would you do for your career? And it was almost like, okay, because you start thinking about what you actually want and what actually brings you happiness and what actually gives you that sense of fulfillment, right? So it's almost just like, get rid of all the shit and just break it down and just be real with yourself. And that will, I think personally, and I've worked with a couple of clients on this, and that's what actually brings them happiness. It's not doing the thing that they think is the right thing to do, but it's actually the thing that they want to do.
Well, it's like even, there's so many people out there that have like amazing photography, but they're not bothered about setting up a business, for example, because they're not business minded, or that's just not what they're driven by. And it's like, well, if you're going out and taking all these amazing pictures, and maybe you've been to a family wedding and you've taken all these amazing pictures that everybody loves, use that as a way as a tool to then go, do you know what? Once a month, I'm going to reach out to somebody who has posted on Instagram using hashtag, wedding 2020 or wedding 2021 by the time this is all over, the pandemic. Reach out to them and say, look, have a look at my post. Once a month, I reach out to somebody and say, do you want me to come and take photos of your wedding for free? Because that would add value and also keep you happy because you're interested in it. So, there's so many different ways that you can do it, and that might save somebody a couple of grand at the same time.
That's a great example, and I love that because that's just a prime example of someone that can do something for free and do something that they love. And usually doing what you love, you pay money towards that anyway, but doing it for free is even better. I fully agree with that. So it's a really good point. Cool. All right. I mean, look, amazing. I mean, thanks for coming on. You've been on some mad journey, like going through your whole childhood, living in that situation, and then going through to high school, going to the work environment, having that hustle mentality, almost burning out, all right, and not finding your balance, and then, pivoting that and switching and shifting your mindset to be like, actually, wait, let me just slow down a little bit. Let me actually focus on me for a little while. I think it's so important. And if you're still listening to this podcast now, like, take some value out of that, and if you know someone who's been through a similar experience, please share this with them as well, because it will help them. It will help them see the light. And I'm sure you're open to people contacting you, Luke. So I'll put all your contact details below or around this post. No, look, I mean, I really appreciate you coming on, mate. It's been
great. Cheers, man.
Very, very insightful, and some golden value pockets of nuggets throughout this whole conversation. Any final words?
I think all I would say to people is, I know there is still a lot of uncertainty going on at the minute with everything that's going on. And I think you'd be surprised at how many people are feeling exactly the same as you. Maybe you're not surprised because you've got colleagues and things, but I would just say to always reach out to somebody, even if you want to drop me a message or whatever, just to vent. Like, the best thing to do is just to speak about it, because at the point that you vent about it, it does, like I say, going back to when I spoke to the counsellors, it just releases everything from you, just even if it's just for a moment. And it might get a conversation started with somebody that, you didn't know was experiencing the same thing, and then you end up helping each other get through it. So I just always say, reach out to somebody. Don't just sit there sort of quietly about it.
Do you know what? Just to add to that as well. So Lynette, who I had on last week, who actually you've come through, she was saying in a debt-free community that so many people have anonymous Instagram profiles, which are so easy to set up, right? So there's no pictures of them, there's no names, it's just their factual information, and they've actually built and motivated via other people that are doing the same thing, because they spoke to, but they still don't know who each other are. So it's almost like a risk-free. If you're worried about someone that you don't want to give your identity over to, then do that. Create an anonymous account on Instagram, because there is that community there, and it can be really powerful, and it's really helped Lynette. She said it completely changed everything for her, and I was like, fair play.
I've never seen such a literally. I've like I said, that's obviously how I knew about Lynette, because I'd seen her in the debt-free community. I think the first post I'd seen from her was one talking about a wedding being cancelled, and like. That whole community is so engaged with each other. It's unbelievable.
Massive, isn't it?
I've never seen. Yeah. It's huge.
Crazy.
So if people are worried at the minute because of debt, because of the redundancies and everything, it really would not surprise me if there's people in that pot who maybe got into debt once before because they got made redundant 5 years ago or something. Do you know what I mean? So definitely reach out to them if that's something you're worried about, because there will 100% be a lot of people that will engage with you and talk to you about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, look, Luke, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, great. Cheers, mate. Thanks for having me.
No problem. And it's your first time telling your story. I'm getting a knack for this. Cool. All right, mate. Well, look, thank you for coming on. And if you're listening to this still and you have gained value out of it, and you do know someone that might benefit from this, then please do share it with them. And please do like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks, Luke. See you later.
Cheers. See you in a bit.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Ignite Your Mind podcast. This is a safe place for real talk on discovering powerful stories, talking about mental health, real business journeys and hearing inspiring stories. Please do subscribe if you are listening to this on Spotify, YouTube or Apple Podcasts, and leave me a comment, and more importantly, share this with anyone who you think may take value from it. New podcasts every Friday at 12 p.m. I look forward to seeing you next week.